This is Court Brutnowski, publisher of Yankee T News, on this Monday, September 23rd, 2024, which, by the way, is the birthday of my father, who passed away in 2001 at the age of 84 and would be 107 today. Now, I need to, where do I want to start with this? Yeah, I'm going to start with the calls to action. Look, the election is what now, 43 days away? And so I wanted to first draw your attention as a call to action to this website here, stopbogusballots.com, okay? It's a little bit like the Three Fairies with Sleeping Beauty. They couldn't stop the curse, but they could soften the curse. In this case, we cannot necessarily stop illegal voters, but we can make it a little bit harder, because Stop Bogus Ballots will explain to you how it's possible to identify when fraudulent addresses are being used for ballots. If you inform the post office that this is a fraudulent address, then the ballots won't get delivered to the illegal aliens. Yeah, you can't get the illegal alien off the ballot, off the voter roll, but at least you can keep them from getting the ballot so the illegal alien cannot vote. Nice touch. All right, so I had to share that with you. And then I mentioned Mike Johnson in a separate rant. You got to call him up and tell him to put the Save the Act bill back on the table and have it passed individually as a clean bill. None of this game playing where it's folded in with a continuing resolution. It's really, they're bad people. I'm going to leave it at that. And then the last thing, call to action. That's right, Lamont is deaf. We have to get louder. So you're going to have to contact his office. It'll be on here. Let me get you the phone number. Here you go. Okay. As I've said before, he's going to try and duck out of responsibility for this, but he was partially responsible for the public charges being put onto your power bill. He can clearly take, quote, leadership. Now there's a concept, Ned Lamont, leadership in this issue, which is hurting people, all right? It's hurting people, and you don't care. You got to do something about it that's for real. And again, I rub it in like I did before. You took emergency powers under COVID, you twisted and manipulated and spindled and folded the legislation for emergency powers and health emergency powers. You can do it for this too, if you really wanted to, okay? All right, so much for that part. Okay, as I said, we've been doing a series now. It's the State of America series, and here we are. So now, last week was, I'm trying to remember, what did I do? I'd have to look back at it. This week, it's employment and illegal immigration. And the place I want to start with is this. Some of you may have seen this, right? So there it is, okay? So this was in late August, and I'm sorry for the Labor Department to come out and say, oops, there's 818,000 jobs that were never created. Oops. You should be outraged. I'm outraged. That more than wipes out whatever claims there were to job gains in 2024. In other words, there were no job gains in 2024. It was zero, all right? And when you compound that with the other reports about who's getting what kind of jobs, it looks really bad. So my take-home message, the theme, by the way, this week is how we believe those who actually deceive. Yeah. And what better example than this? How do they get away with this? Look, the Department of Labor makes these adjustments all the time, and I would call them understandable. And then the other part, in the news, they're saying, oh yeah, economic experts were expecting these big revisions. Seriously? How can you have a revision like that? All right, well, let me tell you, as I started to do research on this, don't worry, it gets worse. It gets a lot worse. So the nerve they have to put out a revision that makes job gains disappear and then say, oh, gee, the August report got another 142,000 jobs, did you? All those other jobs you reported from January to August were a fiction, and now suddenly you're telling the truth? Or do you have the same methodological struggles that you've always had? The answer is you have the same struggles. Anyway, that's just the backdrop, all right? In the front of this picture, the foreground, if I may, is the fact that we now have over 10.5, maybe more, some say 20 million illegals in this country. Okay, many of them right now are, quote, wards of the state, right? They're getting your money and my money through various so-called government programs that are, shall we say, overly generous. How is it that somebody can get $5,000 a month of our money to do with it as they will? Or if there are some constraints, who's taking it seriously? Okay. Those people cannot remain wards of the state forever, right? Now, in the meantime, we know that the Democrats have been doing everything they can to get these people, these illegals, registered to vote. You can't do that. It's breaking the law. Okay, we'll get to that point in a few minutes. The real issue in this part here I want to bring up is that the Department of Labor, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, has done nothing. Nothing. If they're doing it, they're certainly not talking about it. Because here you have people who will be adding to the labor pool at a rate and in a number such that it will be triple what we're looking at least, okay? So let me just go through the numbers. Right now in America, we have 165 million people who are employed roughly. Unemployed make up about, 4.3%, 4% of that would be, say about 5 or 6 million roughly, okay? So those are the currently unemployed. Now you have a similar number, 5 million or so, looking for work. And you're not counting them as unemployed, but they're going to be looking for work, so they're going to be acting just like unemployed people. Suddenly you have this massive pool. Now in the meantime, other people like to point and say, well, we've got 9 million job openings that are unfilled. Yeah, well, that's a big lie too. How many cases are we finding out where the employers are doing false advertising of job positions that don't exist, all right? So let's just say half of those are real positions. Skilled labor. You got to have some capability for most of those jobs. We're talking about a massive influx of unskilled labor. So who does that impact on? Construction, travel, entertainment, the hotel industry, restaurant industry, all right? And it's been said and said before, and I'm going to say it again. This is going to put such downward pressure on wages for people who are barely making money in the first place, it'll blow your mind. This is so bad. And I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, there's only one answer to this: mass deportation, okay? If you're going to restore some sense of justice for the people who are American citizens, those people who came here illegally must be deported. There's no nice way to put it. And we aren't even talking about the drug gangs yet. All right, so that is all right, the government's not doing their homework on this, all right, and they're being incredibly incompetent. I've got my essay up on it, read it, and maybe you'll get something out of it. Meantime, Project One for tonight, Russia. Okay, we've seen the invasion of Kursk. It's now 6 weeks that Ukraine has held territory in Russia, okay, in the Kursk region, 6 weeks. And that's 6 weeks in which the Russians have mounted something that kind of looks like a counterattack, but they haven't really been successful. And if anything, there are areas where the Ukrainians have gained even more ground in Kursk. Okay, so they're consolidating their position. That should be of concern to Putin, okay? They're making it harder to be pushed out. And what are you doing? What are you doing? All right, so here's the other part, and this touches on a much larger issue, which I hope you'll stick around for. Okay, either you did or you didn't hear about it, so I'll tell you about it. First, we hear about a major munitions dump in Russia that the Ukrainians attacked and destroyed. The explosion from that munition dump was so powerful that it showed up on the seismic indicator. It was like a Richter scale, like 2, a couple thousand miles away from where it happened. That's a big explosion. That's a lot of munitions. Okay, so while we're thinking about that, you missed the fact that there is a second and a third munitions dump that they destroyed. Oh my God, okay? And one of those, they actually struck the munitions train. So they destroyed the munitions train and the dump at the same time. That's what you call good intelligence. At what point do you admit that the Ukrainians have got their act together and they're making progress on this? You know, I'm sorry, I'm in company with a lot of good old Russophiles, and I can understand how they feel, but they're not cutting it. They're not cutting it. The other point, look, how long has it been since the Ukrainians pushed the Russian Navy out of the Black Sea? Okay, the Black Sea belongs to the Ukrainians right now to the extent that they're now able to restore their grain shipments to the Bosporus. If anything is of critical economic importance to Ukraine, that's it, and they achieved that objective, even though their country's still being invaded. Is anything sinking in here yet? It just blows my mind. So the other part is the poor air defenses, all right? This has been going on and on and on, and for whatever reason, the Russians cannot seem to get their act together with respect to air defense. They do have some things. They are able to shoot some things down. Yes, they are shooting down a lot of drones. It's true. But guess what? The Ukrainians are getting through. So whatever you're doing, sorry, it's not good enough. And at least, I don't know, how much time have I got, Eric? How am I doing?
6 more minutes.
All right, well, all right, 2 quick points. It seems like the Ukrainians are getting smarter about being what we shall, I mean, this is weird, right? Because we accuse them of corruption, and I believe they've been very corrupt, and they've been abusing and squirreling away and stealing and sidetracking our money on the scale of billions and billions of dollars. Yet at the same time, they're coming up with methods of cost-effective warfare. Cardboard drones, actually foam board, but we'll call it cardboard, that these Australian companies are making. So these things that cost a couple $100 are destroying, you know, equipment that's worth millions. It's kind of an embarrassment. Anyway, maybe the Russians will get their act together, but right now it's not looking like it. All right, so that's my point. See?
What about the Russians that are also using drones that are spraying thermite on the Ukrainian forests?
No, I thought that was the other way around.
Oh.
Right, I thought it was Ukrainians using thermite, but hey, thermite's a common material. They're both using drones. They could be doing it to each other. Who knows? Okay, the next thing I want to jump to here, next project is about the election and polling. There's a guy named Richard Barris who's a leading pollster. He shows up on Steve Bannon's War Room a lot. And he made the point that when you look at the polls right now, you've got 2 camps out there, okay? There's one set of pollsters who want to play it straight, okay? And then others who are clearly biased in favor of Kamala. So ABC, NBC, Quinnipiac polls, these are the guys who are going to shade the numbers in favor of Kamala. But then you have others, such as Barris, I'm trying to think of some other names, and theirs are more accurate. They have the better track record over a long period of time. And so they show Trump leading, but they're still reporting it as a tight race. So here's the question. Are we reliving 2016 all over again? And 2020? When the pollsters would ask, who are you for? And the Trump voters ain't talking. We don't trust you. We don't know who you are. We ain't talking. So could it be that once again, there's this vast pool of quiet support for Trump out there that will show up on Election Day? We don't know. But that's another thing. The concept of Election Day, of course, has changed and changed significantly because of mail-in balloting, early voting. It is, I'll just say, truly a mess. So again, I had mentioned stopbogusballots.com. Definitely go to that website. They're not the only ones. And they will explain ways in which you can make a dent in these illegals trying to vote. And also, for what it's worth, so give me a minute here, see if I can find it. from fightvoterfraud.org, Linda Sinkowitz put up an informative piece, for lack of a better term. Yeah, wherever it went. So fightvoterfraud.org, and you will find a flyer there that warns illegals, don't destroy your American dream. If you vote, you're breaking the law, okay? Your name would presumably be listed as a person who has voted, and if we find that you were illegal and voted, two things are going to happen. You're going to go to jail, or you're going to be deported, or you're going to go to jail and be deported. You don't want that. And believe me, there are a lot of really angry Americans, including this one right here, who will hunt you down, okay? So don't do it. All right, that's project number 2.
Figuratively speaking.
What?
Hunt down.
Okay, well, locate and deliver to the proper authorities for standard legal prosecution in matters concerning election fraud. Yes. Okay. Now, I showed this last time. Here's the full report. It's 21 pages, okay? This is where the Secret Service screwed up royally. Now, wow. So this is probably, I'm going to say to date. I think there's more to learn. I don't think all the truth has been released, but there's more to learn about what happened in the run-up to that day and on that day, all right? All right, so I'm just going to read these off very quickly. So this is from his table of contents. The event was treated as a loose security event. Law enforcement abandoned the roof. They said now because it was too hot, not because, we know they're lying, okay, but this is their excuse. Okay, the Secret Service declined drone coverage. This I find amazing. The Counter-Surveillance Division was not present at the rally. Since when has that ever happened? Wow. Anyway, the site agent was known to be incompetent for Butler. Secret Service headquarters denied additional manpower resources, and DHS agents assigned to Butler rally received inadequate training. Okay, that summarizes it, but there's more when you get into it in terms of their communications and the information they shared with them, and the fact that the current acting director, Rowe, basically attacked anybody who suggested to him that the roof needed to be covered. Really. As far as I'm concerned, that makes you a person of interest, Mr. Rowe. Just letting you know. All right, I had to share that with you. The link for it is up there. Download it, read it, check it out. So, from one assassin to the next. So here's what I put up as the title, okay? The deep state sure knows how to drop hints, okay? That's, yeah, this gets me. Okay, so what's the hint? The hint is the going rate for assassinating a former president successfully is $150,000. Great. Okay. So as the story goes, Routh had put out this bounty on Trump's head, $150,000. Really? When did we find this out? How did we find that out? That's really quite remarkable. There's just one problem for all you would-be assassins out there. How are you going to get paid? You know? Who do you send the bill to? The Secret Service? Probably.
It's the money in escrow, being held in escrow.
Oh, yeah, but to who? Okay. I believe that you send the bill to Acting Director Rowe. Yes, that's what you would do. So, all right, so there's that. And, all right, let me just check some of the other things here before I lose track. Another tidbit. Now, this is of concern here. So the title is the ability for AI to detect plagiarism self-destructing. Self-destructing. Let me explain. So I came across this, okay? So this poor guy who had written his own piece from one beginning to end was accused of 70% of his material being AI. And there's actually been other people who've been making this complaint. Well, this raises a very interesting question about AI's capacity to detect plagiarism. How do they do it? That's right. millions and millions of examples of your writing and mine, all online, taken out, fed into the neural networks that make up ChatGPT. Okay? So what happens then is that which becomes what ChatGPT recognizes as, quote, its own writing, AI-generated writing, is derived from what you and I did. So why would at some point the AI not think that you're imitating the AI, when in fact it's the reverse? Okay, so this is what we're confronted with. And if we're paying attention, there's going to be a point at which you can't trust this AI plagiarism feature anymore.
Essentially, AI is plagiarizing us.
Yeah, essentially, okay? Well, I'm not sure that's quite the way I'd put it, but I know what you're trying to say. Okay, now, also, I just want to remind you, there was this article that makes the point, and I'm going to read their names, so bear with me. Yeah, one of the many lies from Kamala Harris involves the fact that she's for abortion and does nothing to protect the victims of illegal aliens. The following girls have all been murdered by illegal aliens: Kate Steinle, Laken Riley, Molly Tibbetts, Jocelyn Nungaray, Maria Gonzalez, Sarah Root, Elizabeth Padina, Kayla Hamilton, and Rachel Morin. Those are the ones we know about, okay? And she hasn't said a word. She hasn't, with all her prosecutorial capabilities, nothing. So that should tell you who Kamala Harris really is, all right? And let's see here. Where's the other goodie? How am I doing on time here, Eric?
Less than a minute.
Wow, that makes sense. Okay. There is, oh yes, if I can find him. There's an interesting question. There was a gentleman several years ago who was a graduate of West Point. Yes, here he is. West Point graduate who wrote "Communism Will Win" on the inside of his cap when he was graduating from West Point. Let's see if I can pull it up there, get a good look at it. Okay, there it is. And let's see here, Spencer Rapone. Well, it turns out now that he's a doctoral candidate, a PhD candidate at the University of Texas at Austin, studying, quote, modern Arab intellectual history. That doesn't sound exactly like a change of heart to me, but it'll be interesting to see how he evolves, because it's a more belated version of what I think was it Winston Churchill had said, or somebody said, a freshman is a communist in college, a sophomore is a socialist, a junior is a Democrat, and when you graduate, you're a Republican. And unfortunately, it's the opposite these days, but there's clearly the sense of an evolution where you realize your earlier stupidities and finally get it straight. So will this gentleman realize his earlier stupidities and get it straight? We can only pray. And on that happy note, thank you very much, guys.